First things first, I'd like to turn it over to Laura Brown, our the financial supervisor, who will provide us with a report today in terms of where the city is and a couple other things related to that. So Laura, if you would, please go ahead and take us through the packet you've provided us.
Thank you, Clinton. I have two items for you today for my report. One is our normal monthly report for March, should be on your desk. And then the second thing we'll look at would also be on the desk in front of you that says internal correspondence at the top. So just have that ready, please. In our March packet, we are 1/4 of the way through the year. So going over to page 1, you do see those target percentages of 25% as a benchmark. At the end of the month, the general fund ending cash was just over $3.2 million. You can see that on the top line out to the far right. However, there were outstanding encumbrances, purchase orders that are open for about $2.7 million, leaving unencumbered cash of just under $500,000. All our other funds are in the black, so there's no other burdens on general fund that may be hanging out there. Now, keep that carryover in mind, that ending cash of $3.2 million, and when we get to our second document, we'll kind of revisit that a little bit. Going on further into the packet, on page 3, the city is balanced and reconciled as of the end of the month for a total cash balance of about $21.6 million in all funds and all accounts. On page 4, our summary of income tax. Through March, as compared to the prior year through March, we are ahead about $643,000. Of course, more of your income tax does come in early in the year, as you know, the filings were due yesterday actually, but we are tracking that as we go along. And you can see at the bottom of the page the breakdown of how that's dispersed to the various funds and accounts. And then, of course, on the last several pages, starting on page 7, we have our general fund detail. Again, we have comparison of budget to actual, as well as the same point in 2015 as of the end of March. And then we have those percentages. And again, you can use that 25% as a benchmark. So as you start on page 8, looking down through expenditures, we can see that most of our salary and benefit lines are hovering right around that 25% mark, so that is a good sign. We don't have any departments that are really racking up overtime or other kind of unanticipated costs that would cause alarm at this point in the year. Any questions on this packet before I move on to the second item?
Again, I guess going back to the summary at the start, so basically what all the detail quantifies is, once again, that we're running ahead of schedule to the tune of 28% versus 25% on revenue, and on expenditure, we're under budget by a comparison of 25% to 22%.
That's correct.
And you know, again, it's just reflecting the favorable, yet another favorable report in terms of revenue to expenditure and management control that's in place. So that's good. Are there questions of that part before we move forward now? Okay, hearing none, go ahead.
Thank you. Now, like I said, let's keep in mind that we did, like Clinton said, we had another good month. The first quarter of the year has looked good as far as how we budgeted. But then let's take a look at this second page, which is this memo. This is a document that the budget director, Mr. McKee, puts together for the mayor and for other interested parties. He's going to be doing this each month. And I asked him today if I could share this with the commission, because I was going to put something together that was very similar. And I thought, why recreate the wheel and put more documents out there when this is already in place? And I thought it was quite good as how it was organized. If you take a look at the second section called General Fund Rollover for 2016, I just want to walk the commission through this quickly. We start with our total rollover or carryover as of the beginning of the year. So that was about $2.2 million. And you'll see that matches back to what we had in general fund at the beginning of the year, beginning of 16. At year end, there were encumbrances that carried over from the prior year of $286,000, so that took us down to our 1.9 million carryover that, you know, we frequently have talked about in these meetings. We said we carried over 1.9 million, so that's where that is. It was after encumbrances. Then there's two items that have already been amended by council this year. One was 30,000 additional appropriations for an economic development salary, and the second was the 200,000 for the 2 snowplow trucks that we discussed at the February meeting. So that brings us down to an estimated carryover of about 1.7 million. So we're eating it down. Now, in the past month or so, there's been 2 other items, and we'll get into more of the detail, that would also impact the carryover, reducing it even further. One is some additional costs that were not, some of them were not budgeted for in the budget as of the beginning of the year. Others are new costs that have just come up recently. And like I said, we're gonna get into the detail of those, so we'll hold that there, but that's about 532,000, so that would take you down to just over 1.1 million. Then last night, if approved, yes. Last night at City Council, Council approved the creation of a stability fund. And this is something we've talked about in past commission meetings. I brought some examples, and we talked about the need to have a policy and a fund in place where if the city has a carryover, has unanticipated revenues, can we put them aside in a special fund so that that money is there in case of an emergency. Some people like to call these rainy day funds, budget reserves. The city has called it a stability fund, which is fine. That's $300,000. So that would take the carryover down even further to about 883,000. Now, obviously, that 300,000 isn't an expense, but it is moving that money out of general fund and putting it aside and putting some constraints on it, some rules, so that it couldn't just be spent on everyday costs of the city. It would take special action by the city to pull that money out and use it, and they'd also have to, under the ordinance and policy that they passed, have a plan in place to replenish that money, ideally within the same year, if not the following year. So that is something that, and I may have stolen Mayor and Council President's thunder on their reports, but that is something that the council did act on last night. So if all those things were approved and took place, we would go from 1.9 million after encumbrances down to 880,000 roughly of using up carryover balance. Now, I'm not saying that general fund balance would be 880,000 at the end of the year. There's other revenues and expenses taking place, but if you're just looking at the carryover, that's the analysis. Okay, any questions on that, just first of all, before I delve into the 532,000?
One, I'm looking at the 300,000, that should be a negative, correct? It doesn't have parentheses
Correct.
like the other, so it is negative,
Correct.
okay. And then I also noticed on that 532,000, it has bond counsel, C-O-U-N-C-I-L. I assume that should be S-E-L?
It should be.
Yes. It's not a group of people.
Yeah.
It is a lawyer.
It is the attorney. You are correct.
Okay,